Tessa was a unique politician in my experience. She never held one of the really big government departments, the Treasury or Foreign Office, but her impact on politics was enormous. Everything she touched, she turned to gold in some way, whether it was advancing equal pay for women, starting Sure Start, which was an immense program for children in our country, or of course bringing the Olympics to Britain. And she did everything with the same passion, determination, verve, ability and charm. So she was a unique politician, but she was a really dear friend. And everybody who was a friend of hers knew that they could rely on her, whatever their circumstances, whatever happened. She was always going to be there and be there for them.
And she was a very close friend of yours. How did that friendship develop? I mean, I read she once said that she would throw herself under a bus for you.
Well, she was incredibly loyal, but that didn't mean to say that she wouldn't be very frank and honest with me if she disagreed. So she was one of those people, though, that whose integrity you could trust completely. So she was never going to be playing games. She was always absolutely straight with you. But when it came down to it, and there were many times when I was under pressure, obviously as Prime Minister, she was always there for me and would support me and work for me and stand up for me, even when it was difficult and unpopular to do so. And that was, I think, why, quite apart from all her achievements, one of the reasons why she evoked such affection in people was that you knew she wasn't a fair weather friend. I mean, whatever the weather, she was there and always there.
And times of pressure, she was the one who really brought the Olympics to London, and she really had to get you and other colleagues on board for that.
When Tessa first suggested that we bid for the Olympics, there was a lot of opposition inside government. I was advised we didn't really have a chance of winning the bid. So I remember sitting in the garden in Downing Street one morning when she asked to see me, and she just looked at me very directly when I was saying to her, well, look, Tessa, I'm not really sure. Is this really a good idea? And she just said to me, this is a country that should always have the highest ambition. She said, I can't guarantee you that we will win this bid, but I can guarantee you that we do have a chance, and I will give it everything I've got. And this is something that you as Prime Minister should support for the country. And she literally convinced me in that conversation. So I went back afterwards and said, okay, we're going to go with this. And, the rest is history. And she then didn't simply work to make the bid successful, which it was, but then worked to make the Olympics successful in 2012.
And do you remember how she felt about that? Because she was in the shadow cabinet by the time the Olympics actually happened. But was she still proud to see it happening before her eyes?
I think one of the things about Tessa was that for her the most important thing was that the Olympics happened and that Britain was the host of a great Olympic Games, which it was. So for her, the fact she was no longer in government didn't matter to her, but she was still very closely involved in all the implementation. And she was somebody who did an immense amount behind the scenes. So when I visited the Olympics with her, she was talking to the volunteers and to the organisers. She wasn't just mixing with the high-profile athletes. She was with all the people that were helping to make the spirit of the game special, not just the mechanics of it good. So that was very typical of her. And any time she was ever asked to do anything that involved people, she stood out because it's a funny thing in politics, but you can sometimes have politicians that love the people, in inverted commas, but don't actually particularly like people. You know what I mean? But Tessa was someone who adored mixing with people, and she would spend hours and hours and hours with people, and she enjoyed it, and they enjoyed being with her.
You say people meant a lot to her. Perhaps her other greatest legacy is going to be what she did for health, both before her illness and afterwards. What memories do you have of the influence she had in that area?
In the area of health, before we got into government and after we got into government, she was really, I think, the first senior politician that said that the idea of public health, in other words, how you improve the nation's general health and prevent illness, was as important as how you cured illness. So she really made that her thing within first the opposition and then government. And then, of course, in the last months of her life, she became involved in this big global cancer initiative. And it was absolutely typical of Tessa. I mean, she literally spent all the hours she was able, at the same time as obviously suffering her own illness, to make sure that this initiative got support from our government, from other governments. And I can tell you from the people in that global initiative who were involved with her, they were absolutely amazed by her commitment and her endeavour and you know, her selflessness, because she knew she was dying, and yet she was prepared to give everything she had in order to help people in the future.
She famously said that what gives life meaning is not only how it's lived, but how it draws to a close. Now it has ended. What do you think her legacy will be, and her memory among people?
I think her legacy is going to be obviously the things she achieved in public health, Sure Start for Children, bringing the Olympics to Britain, making it a success, what she did for cancer in those last months of her life. I mean, all of this will be big achievements. But I think the other legacy, I think and hope, will be for all the cynicism around politics, this is someone who it's really hard to be cynical about. I mean, she was a committed public servant. And if anyone ever wants to know what politics can achieve, they can look at her life and how she lived it, and how she ended it as a testimony to all that's best in politics.
And finally, how will you remember her as a friend?
For me, she was one of my closest and dearest friends. You know, politics is not a very easy environment in which friendships can thrive and survive. But she was my friend throughout my time in politics, in opposition, in government, after I left office, and she was always the same. She was always true and loyal and decent and wise.